The Cola Wars was the term used during the 1980s to signify the competition between Coca-Cola versus Pepsi.
Recently, an independent research firm ran a taste test between Coke and Pepsi, and the taste more people chose was the taste of Coca-Cola. Yes, more people all across the country, when comparing Coke to Pepsi, chose the taste of Coke as the better taste. Let's look at it this way. We gave America a choice, and more people said Coke is it.
It's a hit. It's a Coke. Coke is it.
The slogan Cola Wars was created in the 1980s as a satirical response to the Cold War. From the 1950s to 1983, Coca-Cola sales had declined from 60% to just 24% of the market share. Pepsi began to outsell Coke in supermarkets, and younger demographics were increasingly choosing Pepsi. Coke was clinging to the dominance only in vending machines and restaurant soda fountains. In 1972, 18% of cola consumers said they drank Coke exclusively, whereas only 4% claimed to consume Pepsi exclusively. The rivalry between Pepsi and Coca-Cola originally began in 1975 with the introduction of the first Pepsi Challenge. The Pepsi Challenge was a blind taste test helped to determine if customers preferred the taste and flavor of Pepsi over Coca-Cola. A Pepsi representative would pour the colas into two unmarked cups for the consumer to drink. After trying both colas, the representative would then reveal the two bottles to the customer so they could see whether they preferred Coca-Cola or Pepsi. The results of this challenge showed that most consumers prefer the taste of Pepsi over Coca-Cola. Coke was still outselling Pepsi, but its market share was declining as Pepsi was rising. Part of the problem with the success of the Pepsi Challenge was that Coke had fallen into a malaise as a brand. People were in love with the notion of Coca-Cola, but they weren't necessarily drinking Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's market share dropped from 24% to 21% between 1980 and 1984, while Pepsi gained ground through targeted youth marketing. In response, Coca-Cola started doing a few things differently. Coke had made some significant changes in the early 1980s. First in 1980, when they switched from sugar as their primary sweetener to high fructose corn syrup to reduce the cost of production. The other thing they did was, for the first time, put the Coke brand on another product, their new artificial sweetener product called Diet Coke in 1982. The next year, it released caffeine-free versions of Coke and Diet Coke. In 1983, Pepsi signed Michael Jackson for $5 million, the largest celebrity endorsement deal at the time. The switch to corn syrup opened the door for bigger changes to the original Coke's recipe. In April of 1985, Coca-Cola CEO Roberto Goizueta stood at the podium in New York City and announced the first formula change in the company's 99-year history. On April 23, 1985, Coca-Cola announced it was changing the secret formula for the flagship drink. The new Coke, as it became known, would have a sweeter taste, more similar to Pepsi, that consumers favored in blind taste tests. The new recipe, sweetened with corn syrup and calibrated through 190,000 taste tests, replaced the original Coca-Cola. The response to the new change wasn't what Coca-Cola had expected. People were outraged and they couldn't buy the original Coke anymore, and Pepsi happily capitalized on the backlash. In one Pepsi commercial, a young girl upset about new Coke taste takes shots at the company's integrity. First they say they were the real thing, and then they're saying it. Then tries her first Pepsi and declares she knows why Coke changed. A voiceover declares that Pepsi is the choice of a new generation. Customers responded by flushing their new Coke down the toilet. They stockpiled cases of the original formula. Grassroots organizations like Old Cola Drinkers of America sprung up around the country to petition the company to change the recipe back. Celebrities, including late-night talk show hosts Johnny Carson and David Letterman, and even devoted Coke drinker Fidel Castro criticized the change. Southerners, sentimentally attached to Atlanta-based Coke, were upset about the perceived capitulation to New York-based Pepsi. The media picked up the story about why people didn't like New Coke, and it was the end. As Coke management traveled to local bottling plants from Monaco to Mexico, their bottlers didn't want to use the new formula. 20 bottlers sued Coca-Cola for changing the formula in their pricing agreements. In May of 1985, Pepsi saw a 14% growth in sales, the largest single-month increase in company history. After 79 days of angry letters and plummeting sales, Coca-Cola reversed course and reintroduced the classic recipe on July 11, 1985. The company announced it would bring back the old formula under the brand name Coca-Cola Classic. Meanwhile, the company continued to sell New Coke as regular Coca-Cola. Despite the negative public reaction, some people at the company still thought New Coke would eventually overtake Coca-Cola Classic, which the company could then retire. Obviously, that never did happen because of the way the New Coke's image was tainted out of the gate, one observer said. They were never able to convince consumers of what was evident in the taste test, which was that they preferred New Coke. The company rebranded the new drink as Coke 2 in 1992, but it never took off, and Coca-Cola discontinued it in 2002. During the 1980s and 1990s, Coca-Cola and Pepsi transformed grocery aisles and TV screens into battlegrounds. Michael Jackson continued to lead the Pepsi charge, which also was featured on his Bad Tour, featuring the Pepsi logo on stage, while commercials showed Jackson dancing with a Pepsi can. In 1989, Madonna joined Pepsi's roster through a $5 million deal that aired her Like a Prayer video as a 2-minute Pepsi commercial, though religious controversy led Pepsi to pull the ad after just 2 days. Although the New Coke campaign sputtered to a stop, overall the New Coke debacle was a financial success for Coca-Cola. People all of a sudden wanted to actually taste the beverage again, and not just kind of feel good about it. Coca-Cola continued to top Pepsi's yearly sales going forward. In 2010, for the first time, both Coke and Diet Coke surpassed Pepsi's sales, leading the Wall Street Journal to run a headline declaring Diet Coke the winner in the Cola Wars. But one could also argue the wars never ended. The high point of the Cola Wars in some ways was the 1980s. The Cola Wars continued to today, with both Coke and Pepsi continually developing and launching products intended to directly compete with each other. And yet, they are still engaging in competitive ad campaigns. So what did you drink? For me, I was drinking Pepsi in the 1980s and 90s, and would switch over to Coca-Cola until the 2020s when I gave up sodas altogether. So what do you remember about this iconic soft drink? Leave a comment below and hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Eric C. Productions. I'm bringing back memories from the good old days. Thanks for watching.